Hi, this is Wray from ProShaper.com. I'm in Charlton, Massachusetts. I have coach building classes, I make metal shaping tools, and I do custom coach building work for clients. This is a video on my shrinking facilitators, which I actually invented about 5 or 6 years ago or so, and I've kind of evolved the design. These are not called stumps because they're not a stump, so I call them shrinking facilitators. What you're seeing here is a large shrinking facilitator that we made the video around. I have a whole bunch of other ones. This one here would be a perfect tool for making tire covers or wheel wells, inner wheel wells. It allows you to shrink very easily. What you're looking at is the completed shrinking facilitator, which is made from just regular construction wood. Now, in the US and Canada, this is how we build houses. This is a 2x10 stock. What else you see here is, besides the assembly of all that 2x10 stock with the nice casters to roll it around the shop, is a coating. This was an evolution. I've tried a bunch of different coatings. First, I made these with no coating. The regular construction lumber is not as hard as hardwood stumps. So with abuse, the regular construction lumber will start to split, and it's a modular design, so you'd have to take out a couple screws, and I did that probably 3 or 4 times or so, and I got bored with that. I said, there's got to be a better way. There's always a better way. So I found this material that was an asphalt-based material. Figured, well, I'll give that a shot. That'll give it some protection for the wood. So I used that, and it worked really, really good. Now, what it did was it provided protection for the wood, but it also grabs the metal, so it holds the metal. With a regular concave depression in a regular stump, your metal kind of slides around and jumps and everything. But when you have this coating on here, it will hold the metal very well. So this asphalt-based material, which was a roofing material that I'd found, that worked good, but it left a residue on all the panels. So I'm teaching the classes, and I'm telling the students about it. And I said, okay, you can do your shrinking here, but then we're going to have to wash the panels with lacquer thinner because the residue would go on all the panels, which was something that really wasn't that good. You know, there was the benefit of easy shrinking and protecting the wood, but now we had this problem of the residue of the asphalt sticking to all the panels, and you had to spend the time cleaning it off. So I hunted around, and I went to Home Depot, and they have a roofing section at Home Depot, and I found this stuff, EPDM. You look it up online, you'll get all the info about it. It's a material that's sold all over the world. It's a rubber-based material, and it has a self-adhesive on the back side. It comes in rolls. This particular large shrinking facilitator took 2 rolls. After getting this EPDM for the first time, I tried it, and I was like, aha moment, because now there was no residue on the panel, and it was holding the panel even better than the asphalt, and it protects the wood. And I've had this on some of my shrinking facilitators for several years now, and you know, literally hundreds of students have been shrinking panels, and in these shrinking facilitators, not one of them has failed. And the students can be pretty rough sometimes with the shrinking facilitators. They don't always hit in the right spot and stuff. You're supposed to hit right in the center at the deepest point. They'll hit other points. So I do hit on the top. You see later in the video, you'll see me hitting on the flat section, squashing the gathers down. What this will do is it allows a method for easy shrinking without having to buy an expensive power hammer or other type of shrinking tool, which is often considered as a way that is like the only way to shrink. In my classes, I show that these really work really well. You can see in the video the results I get after less than 10 minutes. We've got probably 80% of the shape in this panel in less than 10 minutes. So They do work amazingly well. Now we're going to go into the actual build and construction technique of this shrinking facilitator. And this would be a common method on all the other designs, which we can also show some of the other ones I have. This wouldn't be a universal one. You might want to consider having several of these shrinking facilitators in your shop. Just like you might have several stumps in your shop, you can have several of these, and they would have different circumstances that you would use them for different parts. If you're a motorcycle guy, you can make them so that they look similar to a motorcycle tank. That will be a specific use for it, is just to make motorcycle tank halves. Make one of these to make fenders very easily. So you can do your shrinking on any of those motorcycle parts. And if you're doing just smaller patch panels, you can make a big one like this, and you could have 3 or 4 different concave depressions in the surface so that it would give you a wide variety of circumstances for different panels, and it wouldn't take up too much space. Just having, 5 or 6 of these is not a problem for me. So now we're going to go into the actual construction technique, which is relatively simple. Just a few tools you can see here. Here's the list of materials that you would need. These are all common materials in the United States. There'll be metric measurements in the rest of the world, except for Canada. I guess Canada uses the inch method too. And I've read maybe even Australia and lumber is with the inch. So here's the basic stack of lumber. I got a radial lab. So here I am cutting the first pieces. I've decided on the size I want for the shrinking facilitator, which is going to be doing these tire covers. These are the modular center sections. So what I did is to ensure it's very important that you have nice square cuts on this, and that they're all the same size. So I just sheared up a little master measuring tool out of a piece of sheet metal, and I use that measuring tool over and over again until I get enough modular segments. So here I am putting the wood in against the back of the saw, and then I've got the measuring tool, and I'll go to the edge of the carbide blade on the radial saw there. So they'll all be the same based on this, instead of using a tape measure. Tape measures are very iffy. You can be 1/16 of an inch or better off, and this will put it right on the money, and you want them pretty close. So here we go. You're cutting through. So here is the assembly now, and what we're doing is we've got all the modular inserts cut, and we have a picture frame of the 2x10s surrounding the modular inserts, and now it's time to screw it together. So I clamped one end with a bar clamp. We got that clamped to start with. And now all these boards, they're not dead flat, so they're kind of cupped a little bit. So you got to clamp them up. And I've tried clamping them together before. So on this one, I did a little bit different deal. I made the side boards a little bit longer here. Well, here I am just making sure everything's even and square here. I got a nice flat steel top bench. Just feel into my thumb there that it's all flush. And I'm going to put my initial screws in the picture frame here. I'm going to pre-drill them so I don't crack them. These are sheetrock screws, and sometimes you can run them in without pre-drilling them. I'm just pre-drilling the outside picture frame part, not the end grain that I'm going into. That will go right in without cracking. So just to be for a little insurance that it doesn't crack, drive that in. That's flush down there, and then I'll adjust it and get the bottom drilled and put in. A little process you have to go through, make sure everything's nice and square. Again, making it flush. I'm on the other side now, putting my screws in on the other side. And these are, I think, 3-inch long sheetrock screws. They're pretty common here in the U.S. too, so I think there's something equivalent all over the world. They're hardened sheetrock screws, or screw nails sometimes they're called too. They're about a number 10 or number 12 size sheetrock. I think number 10 sheetrock screws. That's the diameter. Again, that might be a different measurement in the metric part of the world. So we're flush on this end. Again, we're doing the pre-drill, trying to drill into the center of the end of the picture frame there. So we bite into the center of the end grain. Now, the overall size of this whole shrinking facilitator was determined by its end use, which was going to be these spare tire covers or inner wheel wells. So that made it, I think, a 31-inch diameter, I think I chose. So it's basically, I just took a big compass and I made a cardboard template. I think you'll see that later. It can do smaller and a little bit larger size than that also, even though it's geared towards 31 inches. So here we are, still putting the screws in on the picture frame. Now, I believe this is the other end. Now we're bringing that tight up bar clamp. You can see the wood's cupped there. Depending on how well you select the wood, some of the wood that's available is always going to have a little bit of a cup to it. So, and that's not going to hurt anything. So we're going to get the hammer probably and drive that, manipulate it a little bit with the hammer. Yeah, get that down a little. And sometimes they're a little bit difference in width too, so you can see it might be a little proud on the top or a little bit here and there. That doesn't mean anything on this circumstance. So tightening that up, and the wood's not really given. It's still going to be remaining cup, but the screws will hold everything together very well. So and that's the screw there. That's a 3-inch sheetrock screw or screw nail, it's called. And these boards are 1.5 inches wide, so you can see the penetration it's going to give you. So I'll continue to put the screws in on that end. This picture frame is really important, and as the cuts of the modular units, you want this all nice and square and nice and tight. So now we got the picture frame done, and now what I'm doing is, like I said before, I made a little change on this one. I made the side pieces of the picture frame a little longer. And now I'm making these little wedges to actually do the clamping for me by utilizing that longer length side piece, which you'll see in a minute here. So these are just little quick wedges that I'm making. Turns out these are 2x4 construction lumber, giving it that little bit of an angle there. I'm going to make 2 of these, one for each side, and this will give a real nice uniform clamp to clamp all those modules nice and tight so I can screw them into the side pieces. So I got it all marked out. Now I'm just going to bandsaw it. If you don't have a bandsaw, a little jigsaw will work fine. So I bandsaw this out. And the initial cut turned out to be a little wide, so now I'm trimming them about 1/4 inch or so because they wouldn't go in the slot. They were just a little too wide, so I'm going to trim those down about 1/4 inch. So I got the taper on the other side, and this is the straight piece, I believe. So now you can see the wedges have been made, and there's the end of the picture frame, which is a little longer, and my intent is to cut this off after I'm all done and just leave the last piece of the modular piece, which will become the end of the picture frame. You'll see later on, it turned out that having this extra was a really good thing because it makes like a built-in handle to roll this around. And if I ever have to take the modules out ever again, I'll be able to use that clamping capability there. So you drive those wedges in. Turns out I had to drive them in a bunch, so I had to slide it over to the edge of the bench, which allowed one of the wedges to go below the edge of the bench. So it tightened it up really nice. And it'd be really awkward doing this with clamps. I've tried it before. Because you have a clamp, you only have access to one side, which was, and here I am trying to massage them a little bit. So if you try to clamp it just on the top, it squeezes the top, but then the bottom kind of hinges out on you, and you can't get to the bottom because it's sitting on the table. So you have to have a real special setup to be able to use clamps. So these wedges are much superior in that it just turns out that that little extra on the picture frame, leaving that little opening for the wedges to use, turned out to be a really good thing. So any one of these I make in the future, it's definitely going to have that little feature. So I get a built-in handle, and I have the ability to really clamp it up really easily. So it's starting to look kind of cool too. And remember, this is softwood. This isn't hardwood at all. It's I believe it's spruce. It can be some pines too. And it's like I said, it's soft construction lumber. They usually use this for roof rafters or something up on the roofs of just about every American home. That's wood stick-built home, they call them, which is the predominant type of home in the United States. So you can see now that wedge has to be driven below the bench surface. That's why I had to cantilever it off the edge of the bench a little bit. We're driving that down, squeezing it up, and that's giving a nice even squeeze, both the top and the bottom. There, like I said earlier, there's a lot of cupping in this wood, so you can see a little gap on some of them, but that's not a big deal. So we got it all clamped, and now I've numbered it. You can see each module has a number, and that locates the module for which side it goes into also. 24 modules, I believe, altogether, because number 25 is actually the end of the picture frame. Now I'm marking the center of where each module comes up on the side of the picture frame. The reason for this is I'm going to have a little square and then project that line down, so when I screw them all together, I'll make sure I try to hit as close as I can the center of each little module. These are necessary little tasks. So now you see the projected lines, the little square there. Then I'm going to put 3 screws per each module, right? It's going approximately in the center of each module. And then I'll put some lines, which will give me a little guide for where I put the screws. I get a straight edge. I'm going to connect those little dots. And as you can see, I don't follow along perfectly, but I'm close. I'm in the ballpark here, so. All right, so I got my line. So all those intersections are where screws are going to go, and this will make this thing a really super strong structure because there's quite a few screws in there. Okay, so now you've seen the lines. I'm deviated from the intersection points a little bit, so there's all the screws, 3 per module, and we did this on both sides. So now you can see that that's a really, really strong structure. Now I've tipped it over here. This is the bottom now because it's really solid. We flipped it over on the bench, and now what we want to do is measure up a plywood bottom for it. So I've measured that assembly box, the perimeter of it, and I'm going to cut this plywood to close off the bottom. I'm going to use a little skill saw here and cut this plywood, first the end length and then the width. So now the wood's all cut. We're pretty flush. And we left that handle extended section open because the wedges are in there. So now we'll put 3 or so screws in the bottom on each end. And then also now what we're doing is on the bottom plate, we're also making the stand which will hold the casters. So cut up some more 2x10 stock. We offset it a little bit inboard. Cut some more stock up. So there we have the riser for the shrinking facilitator. And this we're going to screw nail together also, and we'll clamp this up and put 3 screws per each board for each intersection. So there'll be 12 screws holding this together. And eventually we're going to put a top piece on it. You'll see this in a minute after we get the screws in. And the top piece is the interface for the casters. So we're getting this all screwed together. Now here are the top pieces. These are 2x6s or 2x8s. I can't remember. I think they might be 2x8s. No, they're 2x6s. Yeah, 2x6s. Which is big enough for the casters that I'm using. So far, I think I'm in the ballpark as far as what the finished height is going to be, but I measured my other shrinking facilitators, and some of them are low, and if they're low, you got to bend over more, and I'm tall, so I get a lot of complaints from my students that as tall as I am, that all my stuff is high, so I've got a little bit of variety in the shop, but it favors being tall in my shop pretty much. So this one I decided I was going to go a little bit taller, so we put this piece on here to hold the casters, and then we said, maybe I could make it a little taller. So I threw another piece on top of those. So that gained me 1.5 inches more height. And the caster, I think, is about 6 inches tall total. Nice quality caster. We're fitting up the casters here with just that, and then we decided, okay, we're going to put the extra wood on. So we screwed the first set of 2x6s on, and now we've added an additional set of 2x6s. And we're going to screw the casters using lag screws, which are heavy-duty screws. We're going to pre-drill these. Again, we don't want the wood to crack. And general rule of thumb is if you try to do something like this without pre-drilling, you're going to get a lot of cracking going on. So it's just a good safe bet to insurance to pre-drill a little bit. So I measured the screws. They were about 3/8 or I think 5/16 lag screws. So they were 200 thousandths drill or so. I used to do a pilot hole. So now I think I got all the holes drilled, and we get these located. These are nice, high quality casters. They're pretty rugged. You want a pretty good caster on there. If you go on the inexpensive side on the caster and the thing fails, it's a pain to have to tip it all over again and put another set of casters on it. So I bought these nice high quality heavy duty casters. I got a driver driving those lag screws in. I think they had a 9/16 head. That would be 14 millimeter. So I got some flat washers and I got lock washers. There's the setup there. The lag screws, I believe, were 2 inches long, 5/16 lag screws, 5/16 diameter. It'd be 8 millimeter. All right, now see, there's the whole assembly. That plywood has to be screwed first to the base support system with the casters, and then lastly, that plywood will be screwed to the shrinking facilitator, which we do last. Mark that piece of plywood. I know where that is going to interface. I'm going to tip it upside down, and I'm going to put the plywood on there using those magic marker lines to locate myself, and then screw nail that down. These ones I didn't pre-drill. They generally go through plywood without splitting. All right, there's no splitting problem with plywood. So we're trying to aim for the center of each board. So now we got that all secured. Now this is a 31-inch circle I did with a compass, and this is getting the placement of where I'm going to do the depression, the concave depression in this shrinking facilitator assembly. So I'm trying to line it up, and right now I can see I'm offset a little bit, so I'm not right. This is a mistake. You can see the modules. I'm to the left too much by one board. So I don't know what I was thinking. And I'm doing a video, and I'm trying to do a couple things, and I made a mistake. So, okay, now it looks like I've adjusted it over a little bit. I changed the color of the pen. You can see the first line was a mistake, and then the second line. So now those are where my cuts are going to be. And now, unfortunately, to cut them, with a stump, you have to take a chainsaw and you have to hog out the whole inside of this whole top surface, and it's a real pain. But this one, you're going to have to unscrew the whole thing again. With a screw gun, it comes apart pretty quickly. So everything's numbered, and it's going to go back the same way and everything. So take all the screws out, and we're going to release all these modules, and we're going to start in the center, and we're going to cut the modules on a bandsaw. Again, you can use a jigsaw. You can even use a hand jigsaw if you don't have a jigsaw. So there's always a way to do it inexpensively. So now I have the mark from the cuts. You can see the two little red marks there. And this is the profile gauge I made for the center. And the center 2 modules are going to be cut to this one. So I've taken the center 2 modules out and locate it. I'm going to trace that line, and then I'm going to bandsaw that out. So now I have the center modules cut. They go back right where the number is, and using that cut, I take the offset of the pen, and this is how I've made a lot of them in the past. And I wasn't really thinking this was actually a little different because I didn't take into account that the arc line was going to come down a lot faster. So I ended up overcutting a lot of the pieces. It was a mistake, and I said, oh boy, I got to do this all over again. So I use about a 1/4 inch offset just by using the pen. And what I needed to do was to project. You can see the arc cut. So I'm cutting again another module here in the bandsaw. And the mistake didn't really manifest itself until about 8 modules in or 10 modules in. So it's looking good there, but you'll see in a little bit that there's a little mistake. Now you see there's a mistake here too. I should have observed it right away, was that red line is my stop line, and my cut should be going all the way to that red line. See, I'm about 4 inches away from that red line. This offset's at least a 1/4 or so. And they don't have to be perfect. So one after another, I did them. About 3/4 of the way through, I said, uh-oh, this isn't what I want. I made a mistake. So as you can see, as you're developing this, the cuts become less and less and less because you're losing a 1/4 inch less every time. So they get really kind of small at the end. So most of the mistake was right in these modules here. What happened was I went with my cut beyond where the arc line is, and I'm not anywhere near the red line, so I have to cut the long part out again too. So cutting the long part out was not a problem, but overcutting this end here, you can see right about here, I believe I'm already overcutting, and for some reason I was just blind to it. It's a part of the problem. When you're doing anything, you got to be constantly vigilant for mistakes, because the little demon of mistakes jumps up all the time trying to foil your plans. So you can see here, I'm way beyond that arc line, and I just didn't see it. I was thinking about doing the video more than anything else, I think. We continue on, and we get all the end ones done. And you see now I'm so far beyond the arc line, it's just ridiculous. And for some reason, I was just totally blind to it. Totally blind to it. Okay, now you can see what happened. My nice half circle is turned into something that's not like a half circle at all. And I go, oh boy, what did I do? So at this point, I'm saying, oh, I'm going to scrap this thing and start the whole video all over again. But there's always a fix, so you got to think about it a little bit. And I decided that I could put little inserts in and cut it again with the inserts, or because these cuts were so small, all I had to do was turn the modules over and use the other side of them, which they're not going to get any abuse on those ends anyways. Those ends are not where the work is performed. So now what I've decided is, okay, so now I've redone the line, and now it's in blue, and now I've made the correction by flipping the modules over, and I'm recutting them. Now you can see, instead of going the 1/4 inch over here, I have to be aware of that descending line from the arc on the other side. So I can't go beyond the the lowest point of that arc line. So you can see instead of a 1/4 inch offset right on the end there, it's like 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch offset. So the correction was good, but I'm supposed to be down to the blue line too, so I'm going to have to recut the ends, the other end a little bit, but that was pretty simple. So I ended up, even though I made a major mistake and was pretty frustrated, here it is all fixed. There are some cuts on the other side, but they're not going to have any significance whatsoever, and I saved the wood. Don't be despaired if you make a mistake. There's always a fix somewhere. So you can see the little segmentation here. Now that has to be all ground out. I use a little Milwaukee 5-inch grinder with a 24 grit, and you can see if you angle the bandsaw or angle your jigsaw, you can probably not have to grind so much, but I've always found that to be a little bit of a problem doing the angles. So, but somebody who's a little more proficient at wood cutting might get it better. So now I'm outside because it's really dusty, and this was a December day. It was actually about 45 or 50 degrees out there, so it wasn't bad at all. No snow, nice clean fresh air. And this 24 grit does a quick number on this soft wood. It just bites it out really good. You got to be careful with these little grinders that they don't get snagged with one of the edges, and it'll jump and it'll bite you. So you get hit in the leg or something with it. So you got to be really careful. So I'm holding it really good. I try to be careful about the angle that I'm attacking the wood at. So a lot of dust. So I got a dust mask on. I've got a nice shield on to protect my eyes. I got a jacket and everything. And I got air hose out here. We're going to blow the dust away. You can see how fast that will clean up that mess. If you do this with hardwood, it's a lot slower. So that 5-inch works really good for this nice little curve. So I can walk it in like you see there, and later on I run it right in the arc of the depression. So I'm roughing it out here. Probably took all total about maybe half an hour or so doing this. I took a little break. You get a lot of dust on you, so I blow the dust off, and I came inside, got warmed up a little bit, and took a little break, and then I came back out and did it some more. Found a little few high spots here and there, and we're checking it all out. So here I am using the 5-inch size of that grinding disc to get a nice arc in there. Now it turns out I should have spent probably about 10 more minutes grinding. There was a few little high spots I left in it, but they're in spots that I'm not really going to use the capacity of the concave shrinking facilitator surface of, so it really didn't matter too much. I try to do everything as nice as possible always, but you're always under that gun of getting a job done, so you have to make some compromises. I could have sanded a little bit more, but it actually came out pretty good. Now you can see right there, I've got a little spot that's like a little notch from the cutting. I think there was 3 notches left that I didn't sand out. Again, if I went another 15, 20 minutes or whatever, I would have got those out, but they're not going to be of any consequence either. So it's starting to look pretty nice too. It's a nice little sculpture in itself. So now I have it in the shop. It's all finished. We're just admiring it. Now you can see that I knocked the edge off, the lip edge on the radius, and I want that knocked off because if any place where it's going to chip, it's up there. So, and I wanted a soft edge there, so I knocked that radius, so basically all the way around, but mostly on the radius part, but even on the inboard part of it too. So as far as the depression itself, it's probably about 4 inches. I didn't measure it yet, but I think it's 4.5 inches deep. Now this is the EPDM rubber roofing material I spoke about earlier that I find at Home Depot, but it's available worldwide. I checked it out on a search on Google. It comes with this backing which protects the self-adhesive. And it's pretty thick too. It's 1/16 of an inch thick or so, maybe a little bit thicker. So you want to have this shrinking facilitator all dusted off good. We've blown it off really good. And it's nice. Of course, it's all clean, fresh lumber. Even sanded the top a little bit. You see some of the numbers are sanded off. You got to be careful when you take this backing off that it doesn't stick to itself. If it sticks to itself, you will not get it apart. So I'm going to have about a 3 or 4 inch overhang on the edge. I was intending to put some heavy-duty Gorilla duct tape securing all that, but it turned out that self-adhesive was so good that I didn't need to duct tape it. So this stuff is rubber, so it actually stretches, so it'll conform to these concave double curvature surfaces. So we scoot around and we pull that backing pad off, and we want to try not to get any air bubbles, so we got to work it good. We don't want any kinks or anything, so it's almost like upholstery work here, making sure that you get it nice and smooth. Burnishing it in a little bit, trying to get all the air bubbles out. No kinks, no wrinkles. And I pre-cut those, so now I got the first one down, and now I'm doing the second one, and I'm going to do about 1.5 inches half of overlap. So I don't know which way this thing's going to ride on me, and it turns out the 1.5 inch worked good, so I didn't have a gap anywhere. You got to be very careful, like I said, when you're putting this down, not let it stick to itself when you're taking off the backer, not to put it down prematurely in the wrong spot because it doesn't want to come up. I think there might be a little shot of me trying to manipulate it, and it doesn't want to cooperate. So once it's set, it's set. That said, if you ever have to change this, I think you can take a heat gun and heat it up a little bit with a heat gun, and then it would release, and you can get this off, and you can put another coating if you had to. But once I started using this, I've never had a module crack ever again. Prior to not having any surface treatment, such as this EPDM, the modules would crack like every class. I'd have to replace a module or two. And so that got old, and that was the incentive to figure out what to do. And I just found the first roofing material, which I mentioned before, was an asphalt base, which worked fine, but it had the problem of leaving the residue on the panel. Now this doesn't have any asphalt, except you can see this little shiny black edge on it. There is a little bit of asphalt or something showing on those black edges. Here I'm trying to pull it apart, and it just doesn't want to cooperate because I wanted to move it, but it just wasn't coming the way I wanted it to. So I think, let's see. Yeah, I got it up that far. Now I'm trying to pull it over here. It's not coming. So you can see how strong that stick is. So I says, oh, forget about it. So we stuck it back on, and what we had to do, because it's rubber, you can actually turn it a little bit. You see I wasn't going to overlap on that back portion of it there. So now I'm turning it a little bit, and I was worried about wrinkles. But because it's rubber and it stretches, it's walking right in where I want it to. So it's not bad at all. So it's a nice little feature of it. And this overlap doesn't have any effect on its use later on. So we started in the center and then work our way out. Now we're out to the edge. And we're doing the edge pieces. And it turns out I got 2 rolls of this, and that was a guesstimate. And it turned out to be perfect. I only had like maybe 1.5 feet of material left over, so it worked out absolutely perfect. There was no plan or anything. It was just a good guess, I guess. So you can see I've got a little showing on the right side. The left side now I've got done. Doing a little bit of crude upholstery work here, trying to get the corners to lay down good, so I'm going to make a little relief cut. And I need some of this material. That's all I got left, so I need that material for the other side. It'll give you a lifetime of service too. These things, like I said, my students, they do everything possible to abuse these, and it takes them. So the idea is to hit it always at like the 12 o'clock, the center of the radius position, right at the bottom. I find students hitting them every which way. I don't know why they do that, but they do. So I have to keep correcting them. And you don't want to hit up by the edge, because that's where it's more fragile. So, but even saying, like the students do hit up by the edge and they don't break. I've never had one break since I've been using this material. Now what I'm doing here is that that's all completed, and now I'm making a paper pattern for the piece of sheet metal that I'm going to use to try out the new shrinking facilitator. So I'm making a nice little arc. I could have used a compass, but I just wanted to do this as a quick little exercise. I didn't get the compass, and I knew what I wanted to do, so I got a nice little semicircle there. That's the extra I figured I needed, and I got a little extra there. Now I'm going to show you a cool little tool. If anybody doesn't have electric scissors, these are cordless electric scissors. You got to get yourself a cordless electric scissor. My wife bought me a pair about 10 years ago, and she showed up one day with them on the dining room table, and I said, "What's that?" She says, "Oh, it's electric scissors." I says, "Oh, that's just what I need." I says, "Why didn't you just throw the money away?" "How much did that cost?" She says, $11. I said, "Just go out to the street and throw it in the street." And I've tried them, and I said, "Get me a pair." So I'm an electric scissors guy now. There's nothing better than electric scissors. So now I'm using this paper to not only be my model for my patent for the blank, but now you can see what's going to happen as we use the shrinking facilitator. See how that paper bunches up? Well, the metal is going to do the exact same thing. Exact same thing. It's going to ruffle up just like that. Actually, the metal ruffles up better than the paper. So I've got my paper, and now this is my first sample piece. That this isn't anything like the semicircle. It's just got a little arc on it, and using one of my Pro Shaper mallets that we make and sell. Here we are. These got Delrin ends in them, and you can see there's probably like 25 hammer blows here, and it holds the panel really well. And you see these are what I call spontaneous gathers. And what the trick is to knock those gathers down. Now this is just standard generic 20 gauge sheet metal. It's 35 thousandths. That's what I've been using a lot with the class. 19 gauge was what I used to use, but 19 gauge has become difficult to find since they put the tariffs in, and maybe it'll come back, hopefully. And maybe it's available at a higher price, but I have some 19 gauge, but 20 gauge is just really easy and generic to get. And all my projects, most of them are all going to be aluminum. You can see that just like 25 hammer blows. You can see how much shape has happened on that panel. Now, that brought in the English wheel, and that's all shrinking. There's only about 1% of stretch or so. So here's the actual semicircle. That'll be a tire cover, and we're just going to hit it on that red line. That's going to pop up these spontaneous gathers, which we're going to take advantage of. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hammer blows. 9 hammer blows, put 10, 11, 12. And this is a hefty hammer too. It moves the metal really well. If it was aluminum, you can be using aluminum on this situation, and aluminum you could anneal that whole edge that has to be worked if you choose to. You don't have to, but it makes it a lot easier, and by the time you get it done, it's all going to be back to a non-annealed state. So now we're using the shrinking facilitator to crush these gathers up, and we want to make it so that we don't tip the metal over on itself, because you tip the metal over on itself, it'll cause a crack later on. So you can't allow a tip over. Now I'm going to do a really comprehensive shrinking video in the future. I'll show a very comparative video on shrinking with various methods. I've got my power hammer with my shrink die, and I've got another power hammer, which is a Maglio or Helve hammer. I can show you how they shrink there, and I've got my gathering tool that I use, and I got, so it's going to be a pretty comprehensive shrinking video showing you the advantages and disadvantages of every method. Now this method is very inexpensive. That's what I like about it. 95% of my students really don't want to spend a whole lot of money on tools, so this empowers you and inspires you to be able to make a panel like this for inexpensive money. So you can see that edge is coming over pretty fast, and I had a big supper, so I'm getting a little winded too. So I'm taking my time here, and I actually sat back and relaxed a few minutes after. So we did this in a couple stages, not all in one go. So I'm continuing to knock these shrinks down, or gathers down. You can see the center section is humping up a little bit. And the situation here is that center section will hump up, and that'll be fixed by more shrinking right where my left hand is with the glove. That's all that region from, say, 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock needs a lot more shrinking. These regions from 9 o'clock to the left side of the panel, as you're looking at it now, to 10 o'clock, that doesn't need as much shrinking. As you can see, there's less gathering going on there. It's just in the center that you're going to need a little bit more. So we're going to do some here, so we're going to catch a little bit of it here. And these just pop up amazingly fast, and they go down pretty quick too. But you always got to be careful that you don't tip the metal over, and you want to see this hard spine too. The hard spine is like the tectonic plates of earth movements. It's where mountains are formed or earthquakes happen. It's the collision of the two tectonic plates, and they're basically going into each other and thickening. So the metal is thickening here. So now if it looks like it's going to tip over, I'll bring it up onto the flat section, and I'll knock those down. I don't let every single hammer blow. You got to keep vigilant that that end of the gather doesn't look like it's going to tip over. So it's very important that you stagger your hits, one side then the other. I call it the half of the ice cream cone. So you go on one side of it, you start at the tail, and you work your way towards the front. You can jump to the front a little bit and close it up. I call that corralling. And you can see this is all shrinking. There's been, a little bit of stretching when you hit it with the hammer blow, which causes the original gathering. Now this one's a little steep, so you got to be careful on this one. You see that angle of the outer edge of it. If it gets too steep, it'll tip over on you, so I'm crushing it down. And I do have a regular stump, a big one, and oftentimes I'll knock those down on the regular stump, but even this works really good. So all this unevenness and roughness and stuff, once we finish our shrinking procedure, then we will go to the English wheel and smooth this out. To get from this stage to, like a mirror finish on this thing on the English wheel is probably about another 10-15 minutes to get that to be all settled down. But we still need more shrinking. You see how the center is arced a little bit. So now we hit it again, and this loves to shrink. You can see when you hit it, all these gathers pop up because now the metal has already been trained that you want it shrunk. And all these gathers will just keep popping up, popping up, popping up. And I can't say enough about how good that rubber EPDM works, because it just holds that panel for you so well. And I got these nice thick gloves on. They insulate the hammer blows, and they're very protective of your hands. And they really hold the panel. They're kind of a gummy rubber glove. I found them at a discount store. Work really, really nice. Now, sometimes you'll see me flipping the hammer. I've got the low crowned end and what I call the medium crowned end. I also have two other ends, a chisel end and a high crowned end, which I use for specific applications. This is more of a general application here. So we're using these two ends, but I flip them around. So now see, I'm using the low crown to throw the gathers up. See the gathers jumping up, I'm pointing to them. So you can keep sending that edge up. So it's probably about 4 inches or so up now. And I can get that to keep going just by where I place it on the shrinking facilitator. That'll keep coming right around. Okay, so in this video, I've shown you how well the shrinking facilitator works. I'm not going to smooth the panel out. Another round of shrinking might be needed. But generally what I do is, by making a panel like that, is I'll do probably a good portion of the shrinking in one go. And I try not to do it 100%. I do a good portion of it. Then I'll bring it to the English wheel, smooth it all out, and then I'll go in and give it another round on the shrinking facilitator. And all total, I call this step 1 in my class, is the gross development of the shape. And that's to get it to somewhere between 80 and 90% or so of development. If you really got your skill sets honed and you have the right tool, there's a good mallet, a shrinking facilitator, and an English wheel, and those are all inexpensive tools too. They can be more expensive if you want more deluxe stuff, but you can make them or buy them pretty inexpensively. And make a part such as this that is very difficult to make without using this type of method or more expensive tools. I'll do a second round of shrinking and another second round of planishing in the English wheel. That will bring the panel by the second time up to a nice mirror finish. That is what I love so much about the English wheel. But this video was all about the shrinking facilitator, both the construction and its capability. We're going to have another video showing the comparative shrinking methods later on this year. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you can continue to watch the videos I make in the future. Constantly coming up with new ideas and new techniques. Teaching a class with people from all over the world really inspires me. I get a lot of my ideas and also inspiration from those students. So I'm like a vessel for the whole deal to keep getting it better and better and better. It's not a stagnant craft by any means. There's still so much to learn, so much to improve, and I'm trying to make a contribution there. So thank you very much for your support if you buy the video or any of my tools, and we'll be seeing you and talking to you soon. Thank you.